I'm often shocked at the extent to which founders so often build their brand completely out of order. It means they are constantly going back and reworking, which wastes precious time, precious money, and delays their launch. So often, founders jump straight to creating logos, building websites, or running ads. And then they wonder why their marketing feels scattered, their messaging feels confusing, and their audience is not converting. If you feel like your brand is a mix of ideas rather than you having a clear system, this video is going to fix that. I'm going to walk you through the three-phase system that I use for my clients. It's also the one I've seen every successful founder brand being built upon. I call it simply the brand creation system, and it's comprised of 3 stages. It is the exact system I use with clients at Bright and Early, and that I offer in my downloadable toolkits. Stage 1 is about standing out. It's the foundation. Stage 2 is called express. It's about expressing that foundation visually and through messaging. Step 3 is launch, but it involves careful planning before you get into market and actually launch. Before I walk you through the phases, I just want to underline a simple truth. The question is, why does the order matter? Because brand building is not a creative guessing game. It's actually a sequence. When you follow the sequence, everything works. When you skip steps, everything becomes messy, your decisions multiply, and you have to go back again and again. Most founders try to build their website before they have clarity on who they serve. They try and design visuals before they know how they want people to feel. They try to write copy before they have a clear offer. The three-phase system removes all of that. It gives you a clean, simple order to build a brand without guessing, going back, or doing any reworking. It saves you time and it saves you a million decisions down the road. So let's begin. The first standout stage is the foundation. Always start here. This is where you define who you are building for, what they need, and what makes your brand different in a competitive market. If you skip this phase, your brand ends up sounding like every competitor in your category. You end up two-dimensional. You don't end up being a brand in the real world. This stage is comprised of 3 elements. Element 1 is your audience niche. Element 2 are the insights relating to their problem. And element 3 is the positioning. Let's do them in order. So element 1, audience niche. The first thing you need to define is exactly who you serve. And this can't be everyone. It can't be a demographic like US adults 25 to 55. A niche is a specific type of person with specific beliefs, specific values, specific behaviors, and above all else, one specific problem which you are going to be helping to solve. For example, my audience niche is first time and early stage English speaking founders building businesses designed to drive positive change in the world. Facebook's first niche was Harvard students who are single and want to meet other Harvard students online. Yeti's first niche was fishermen who go out on long expeditions and sit for a long time in cold environments, and therefore need sturdy coolers. These niches include very specific roles, very specific values, and very specific behaviors. So my question to you is, who's the one person that will get the most value from your brand? Whose persistent problem are you solving? The best way to get to your audience niche is this. Define a broad target audience. For example, for me, it would be entrepreneurs. Have a lot of conversations with this broad audience. I'm talking 20, 30 at a minimum. After 5, 10, 15 conversations, I promise you, you'll start to meet your target. And you'll realize who is not your target as well. Your target niche will be the ones who say that they have a persistent problem, the one you're going to try and solve. They'll be incredibly obvious to you. Once you find that person, name them. Find out all you can about them. They're your audience niche, and you'll build your whole brand around their needs. This part creates gravity. It makes your brand essential to at least one kind of person in the world. Element 2 are your insights. Insights are the real truth behind your audience niche's behavior. It's what they feel, what they struggle with, and what motivates them. So what you need to do is have more interviews. Ask your first ideal audience target to refer you to 3 others, and then ask each of them to put you in touch with 3 more each. Before long, you'll have 50 people who you can speak to who are all part of your niche. The most important interview rule for each one of these conversations is, do not reveal your product, offer, or service in the interview, because that will bias them. Only talk to them about their problem. Their problem is what you'll build your brand around. This is what people care about. Instead, ask them questions like, what keeps you up at night about this problem you're having? What costs you the most money and effort with respect to this problem? How are you currently trying to solve this problem? Have you ever tried to solve it in other ways? And if you had a magic wand and you could wave it to come up with a dream solution to the problem, What would that look like? Insights help you stop guessing and start speaking directly to what your audience cares about. Element number three is positioning. Positioning is not a tagline, it's not your message, it's actually the strategy. It's the strategic core of your brand, which positions your business in the context of the wider world. And the context of the wider world is best described by the interaction of what were called the four C's. And that is number one, customer. That's your audience target and the insights you gain from them. Number two, culture. That's what's happening in the world at large. Number three, it's the category. That's what your specific product or service industry is doing. And then it's your competition. That's what others like you in your category are offering. No brand exists in a vacuum. So, in order to be relevant, you must conduct a thorough analysis of each of these four areas. Using these four C's allows you to exist in the real arena of the marketplace. It takes you from an imaginary brand in the mind of the founder to an actual 3D brand in the real world. From that, you'll be developing your positioning, which is made up of three parts: the customer and the problem that you're solving, the cultural and category tensions that you're tapping into, and then the competitive white space that you're owning. If you need exact instructions for researching your four C's or developing your positioning from them, you can download our Founders Launch Toolkit on our website. It has all the steps laid out and includes AI prompts as well. Once you know who you serve and why you matter in the world, you can begin shaping how your brand feels. And that is stage two. Stage two is called Express, because Express is where your brand starts to take form and you express who you are. Most founders actually start here, but this is the second phase for a reason. If you start designing without strategy, your visuals look nice, but they don't really mean anything yet. Since your brand is now real and positioned in the context of the real world, Express brings your brand to life in a way that's consistent, recognizable, and intentional. This stage is comprised of four elements. Element one is your brand personality. That's who you are as a brand. Element two is your visual identity. That's how you look. Element three is your verbal identity, how you sound. And element four is your messaging. That's what words you actually say. So let's do them in order. Element one, your brand personality. Expressing your brand comes in two ways: verbal and visual. However, before we do either of these, we need a brand personality that informs both. So here, ask yourself, who would your brand be if it was a person? Is your brand someone calm and grounded? Is it someone bold and irreverent? Think about real people, either in your own life or celebrities. Does your brand represent the depth and eloquence of Barack Obama? Is it the calm and organized approach of Marie Kondo? Or the gruff and rebellious nature of Clint Eastwood? Write down at least 4 to 5 personality attributes before moving forward, and that will be your brand personality. Next, it's visuals. Element 2 is your visual identity. We see first and we read and hear words second. This is where most founders get really excited. Logos, typography, colors, photography styles, textures, layouts, they're often seen as the fun part. In our system, visuals are built to express the strategy, not just decorate the brand. If your personality is bold, your design should feel bold. Your brand is calm, your design should support that calm. But there's also many ways to evoke that. I often recommend writing a clear creative brief based on your brand personality and finding a designer or a branding agency like us to execute this. However, since many founders want to do it themselves or lack the cash, especially at the beginning, we've also created tools with step-by-step instructions that explain exactly how you do that yourself. Element number 3 is your verbal identity. Once people see your brand, they then read what you have to say or hear what you're saying. This is your brand tone and your brand voice. How you speak, the tone you use, the phrases you repeat, and the language your audience connects with. This needs to be defined before you move on to actual messaging. Again, this is about defining how you want to communicate before you write the words. So, is your brand casual, chummy, and friendly? Is it humorous and constantly making quips? Or is it serious? Will you be deep and meaningful in the way you'll use language? Or will you be more superficial? Element 4 is messaging. Messaging is how you turn your strategy into words your audience immediately understands. Messaging is the external facing communication they will actually see on your social channels, on your website, etc. It will include things like your value proposition, your benefits, your core statements, how you describe your offer, your story as a founder or a brand, and your repeated phrases. Messaging is what makes your brand feel sharp and unmistakably you. This is something you actually just set once, and then it should remain consistent. You don't want to be writing new messaging every time you create a new asset. You want a consistent messaging document and only adapt it to different platforms and channels. Because through repetition, you'll be memorable and recognizable. If you change all the time, that familiarity gets lost. Now let's move on to stage 3, planning your launch. Once your brand stands on a solid strategic foundation to stand out in the marketplace and expresses itself uniquely, you'll be ready for this third phase. Launch is as much about planning as it is about execution. It is being slow and steady for how your brand shows up in the world, not biting off more than you can chew, and learning, adapting, and then doubling down on what actually works. It is where everything you've built becomes practical. This is actually another phase founders rush into first because they want to build a website, they want to get into social media platforms, and then they wonder why nothing converts. Or they try to do too much too soon. They choose too many channels, they invest too much budget, and they don't test enough. A successful launch only happens when the first two phases are solid and when launch is planned intentionally, step by step. So start simple and then add more layers later on as you learn. This stage is comprised of 7 elements. Element 1 is setting really clear goals. Element 2 is picking initial launch channels. Element 3 is creating a funnel to convert your audience and planning it ahead of time. Element 4 is building a rollout plan for between 6 to 12 months. Element 5 is creating a very simple landing page. Element 6 is deciding how you'll appear on social media and which platform you'll be using. And finally, Element 7 is developing a testing plan. Let's do them in order. Element 1, setting goals. Goals are the outcomes you want your launch to achieve. You can't measure success without having clear goals and objectives. But again, most founders skip this step and then judge their launch more emotionally or sporadically instead of objectively. Your goals should be specific and tied to behavior that you can measure. Do you want 10 sales, 30 email signups, or 1,000 visitors to your landing page? Pick a small handful of clear targets and write them down. This gives your entire launch direction and prevents you from spinning in circles. Element 2 is choosing your channels. Your channels are the places where your audience already spends time. Not where you want them to be, but where they actually are. Channels can be Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Substack newsletters, Reddit communities, or podcasts that they listen to. You don't need to be on every channel. In fact, you only need the ones your audience checks on a daily or weekly basis. You should choose one primary channel and maybe one secondary. That's it. Spreading yourself too thin early on kills momentum at launch and you don't learn as quickly. So keep it simple. Element 3 is planning your funnel. Now, your funnel is simply the path you want someone to take from discovering your brand to taking action. It's just a sequence of steps that move someone from awareness to conversion. Most early stage funnels look like this. There's a social ad or piece of free content that drives users to your landing page where you capture their email via a lead magnet, and then you email them with a sign-up offer. The goal is to reduce friction at every step. Your funnel should be short, clean, and intuitive. If people get confused, they are going to leave. Element 4 is creating your launch rollout plan. Now, your rollout plan is the schedule for how your brand shows up in the world during your launch phase. You decide what messages you want to share first, what comes next, and then how the energy builds. A good rollout plan starts very simple and then builds complexity with time as you learn what your audience responds to. You might start with empathy on the problem you solve in week 1, then show your process during week 2, introduce your offer in week 3, and then share proof or value in week 4. You can map out each post, email, and announcement up front so you're not improvising every day. So that takes away decision making. Map it out for at least 3 months so you then have a plan to follow when the launch moment hits. Element 5 is planning and building a simple landing page. Your landing page is the home base of your launch. It's where people go to understand what you offer and why it matters. It should be simple, direct, and free of clutter. You don't need a full, all singing, all dancing website yet. It's too early. All you need is one clear headline, 3 clear benefits, and one clear call to action. This is where you'll capture your audience's email by offering them something valuable, like a lead magnet. Often this is a small piece of your main offer that starts to solve their problem, but doesn't solve it completely. Founders too often over-design this page and end up confusing their audience. If your landing page can explain your offer in less than 10 seconds and provides a reason to give you their email, you're doing it right. Remember, only build your landing page after stage 1 and 2 are complete. Don't rush to this step. Element 6 is your social strategy. Your social strategy is a plan for how you're going to go live on social media. It's not about posting everything everywhere. In fact, you really shouldn't. It's about choosing one social platform at launch, and then it's about choosing themes that reinforce your positioning in a way that makes people care. At launch, you want about 4 social pillars. You want a mix of empathy to your audience's situation, education on your product, storytelling and behind the scenes footage on you and your brand and how it was founded, and finally, as soon as you have it, social proof, testimonials, and case studies. I repeat, keep it simple. One platform to start with, 3 to 4 content pillars repeated week after week. That is all you need to build initial momentum. Finally, element 7 is testing. Testing is where you learn what lands with your audience and what doesn't. Most founders skip this and rely on assumptions. But testing can and should be small, and it should be fast. For example, using social ads, you can run 3 or 4 different headlines, 3 or 4 different types of content, or a few different calls to action. Then you look at what earns clicks, earns comments, or saves. And remember one thing, only change one variable for each test to keep every test clean, because that way you'll learn what's working and what's not. Testing removes emotion from your decisions, and it gives you real data to improve your launch in real time. It also stops you from going all in too soon and encourages only doubling down when you know something really works. It's how you evolve from guessing to knowing. So I believe the 3-phase system is really simple but really powerful. We have phase 1, which is standing out, your foundation that makes your brand distinctive and 3-dimensional. You have the second stage, express, which is your personality, your visual and verbal identity, and the external messages that are written on your platforms. Finally, phase 3 is launch, and it's an intentional plan to get into market and then measure your success. Honestly, every successful brand you admire follows this order. And if you build your brand using this sequence, I can promise you, you'll save yourselves months of guessing and thousands of dollars in backtracking and mistakes. If you want to use this exact system for your brand, the digital tools on my website, such as the Founders Launch Toolkit, give you this system with written instructions, worksheets, templates, and AI prompts. You can find it linked below. Finally, make sure you hit that subscribe button for more founder tools, client breakdowns, and my personal journey as a founder. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.